Well, I guess this is the start of needing videos while you're gone next month.
Yeah, I'm probably at Universal right now, actually.
And we had another one of these to do, so I thought I'd go ahead and make this for that. This will be on, like, what, the 12th?
Yeah, December 12th. Doing a lot of work in this video, so this is going to cover a lot of bases. And you had a big list of limited release movies, and this is the end of it.
Well, it'll be, yeah.
By then, it'll be the end of it.
Yeah.
So, kudos.
So we have 11, and like usual in this exact atmosphere, I'm just going to go through them as quickly as possible, especially since I've been up since 3:30 this morning. So, okay. We're going to start with something that's been out for a while called Adult World. It opens, and Emma Roberts is trying to kill herself.
All right. What a great way to start a video.
Yeah, I almost said something insensitive, but we'll keep going. It was too cruel. I can't say that. I'm not Emma Roberts' biggest fan.
No, you're not.
That's what I mean. So anyway, and then of course we go back a year. And she is failing in life. She's a deadbeat. She wants to be a poet, but all of her work's not getting accepted, and she sucks at it.
Okay.
But she has confidence. So she realizes she needs to get a job, so she gets a job at a sex store. Like sex toys or novels or whatever you're looking for. And naturally, because trend, Cloris Leachman is the one that runs the store.
Of course.
But she's not really doing the thing, though. She's just kind of there. Like, she doesn't even really have anything funny to say or do. She's just there. And Evan Peters, who everybody knows and loves now, as the person engaged to Emma Roberts in real life, as well as, American Horror Story and Quicksilver and all that. The character, not the Kevin Bacon Viking movie that Premium Rush basically kind of remade. The Premium Rush is much, much better. But despite that sidetrack, there to do like a book signing is her favorite author ever. She's like absolutely, totally, completely obsessed with him.
Okay.
And it's the dude who I have no idea how many movies of this year he has had now, but you can chalk this one up to. It's John Cusack.
Nice.
I think this is like his 6th movie this year.
He's in one of my favorite movies of the year this year.
So she starts to follow him around and basically says, I want you, actually not basically, she actually says, I want to be your protege.
Okay.
So take me under your wing and I'm just going to hang out with you.
All right.
But, he's a recluse and, just the cliche writer thing.
Of course.
We watched a movie just like this recently, and I'm trying to remember what it is.
Well, there's the same somewhat...
St. Vincent. St.
Yeah.
Vincent, yes. Where the person wants to be, close to the recluse, but the recluse isn't having it, but don't worry, because they kind of somewhat... Well, Cusack kind of sticks to the whole not warming up to a thing, but
The beginning of St. Vincent.
I'm not the biggest fan of this movie.
Okay.
I think it's a comedy. I'm not quite sure. I think we're supposed to... Well, the main problem is that it's her... It's not just I'm iffy on her in general. It's her character is really, really grating a lot of the time. And there's just... That in itself, she's basically in every scene of this movie. So it's one thing to have a grating main character, but, in every single scene, you can only take so much of her. And for me, I think it wore off a lot quickly than it would for normal people.
So it's kind of like how a lot of people take Lake Bell. How you're not the biggest fan, but in small doses it's okay.
Now, everybody loves Lake Bell for some reason because of In a World.
I know.
Maybe the word world is what had that in your subconscious.
Potentially.
But these are nothing alike.
I'm guessing Adult World is the name of the store she works in?
And that's how they show the title. It's the titles, the name of the story's on the back. She's trying to kill herself with.
Wow. I'd be a big neon sign.
That's what the poster looks like.
Okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, that goes in I mean, there is kind of a funny thing towards the end where Cusack finally does her a favor, but not in the way that she had anticipated. That's kind of a funny payoff, but apart from that, there's not a whole lot I can recommend here. As you can probably tell, I'm struggling to remember it at all. Because that's pretty much all it is. She just kind of hangs. It's also kind of like About a Boy, where Nicholas Hoult just kind of goes to his house every day. It's kind of like that. Except for the whole warming up part. That doesn't really happen much. Okay. Our second movie, I'm still not quite sure how to pronounce it. I believe Automata. It's something like that. You've seen the movie. There's an accent over the O. That's all I know how to say it. But to make it easier on you, it's I, Robot by way of Elysium.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it stars Antonio Banderas, who even has shaved his head bald, just like Damon in Elysium. Where they're in this post-apocalyptic world where robots live under rules, where, you know, they're here to serve us, but they absolutely won't hurt us because that's their oath. But then maybe they possibly start to. And Antonio Banderas is kind of there as a guy that works for the company and sees about, like, you know, incidents. And to make a long story short, he ends up stranded in the desert with a couple of them. And it's kind of a fight for survival type thing. You have a loose cannon cop with a grudge, played by Dylan McDermott, who I didn't recognize right away because he's got, like, the goatee and the slick back hair. And he looked a lot like Ruffalo in Collateral. Melanie Griffith has an interesting dual role. She is the woman that they go to that kind of runs things, and then she's practically killed immediately. But she's also the voice of the robot that he's with, that he's stuck in the desert with. And it goes from there. Like that's like saying that it's iRobot by way of Elysium pretty much tells you everything you need to know about it. Not just the setup, but everything from beginning to end. All the way up to the big action-packed climax. Which also had hints of RoboCop in it, as you could probably guess. That probably is not surprising at all.
No.
But it's alright. I've always thought Banderas was a really, really appealing actor in everything he's in, even if it really, really sucks. But this doesn't suck. It's fine. It's creative enough with its concept, and it's got, you know, it doesn't look cheap, which is the case for a lot of these movies that don't get, you know, totally wide releases.
Yeah.
That have, like, you know, big budget effects. So yeah, it's worth checking out, at least. It's nothing like on the level of Elysium or anything like, or another Blomkamp movie or anything. It's probably about on the same level as iRobot, as far as quality, I would say. I haven't seen iRobot for a long time, though, so I don't really know.
I want to ask you a question based on the cast list. I'm reading the cast list here off camera. Robert Forster.
Yeah.
And Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem is listed as who?
The Blue Robot voice.
Really?
Yep.
No, now that I think back on it, it's kind of obvious. It's funny I mentioned Collateral earlier, because he also had an unexpected cameo in that as well.
Yes.
So that's interesting, yeah. Oh, and Robert Forster is kind of the guy that's like his... I wouldn't necessarily say like his Houston, but he's basically the one searching for him in the desert. Okay. Our third movie is something your grandparents will love, no doubt. I'm of course referring to Elsa and Fred. which I didn't know about until my personal grandma informed me about it. And it's a romance movie with Christopher Plummer and Shirley MacLaine. Okay. It's actually got a lot of people in it, though. There is Christopher Plummer and his family, his daughter is Marcia Gay Harden. Her son is Sam Tchaikovsky from Moonrise Kingdom. I forgot his last name there for a second. Who the fuck else was in this? I'm sure you've got it right there.
I've got it right in front of me.
Okay. I've been up since 3:30 a.m. not with it. Shit.
No issues. We've got... This is interesting. We've got Scott Bakula.
Yeah, Scott Bakula is Christopher Plummer's son, who's basically encouraging him to get back out there, because obviously the plot of the story is he's old and he's moving in this apartment and Shirley MacLaine's his neighbor, and he just wants to lay around on the couch and watch TV until he gets old and dies, but then Shirley MacLaine comes in and peppers his life up and everything's wonderful. But there's a secret that's revealed halfway through to make it not that easy, of course. She's the one where they're trying so hard for the "oh my god, she's old, that's so funny" type laughs. She drives down, every time she's in her car, she listens to rap and dances to it.
I knew that was going to happen.
It's one of those goddamn movies.
Oh, man.
Christopher Plummer's friend was George Segal.
Yep.
Did I miss anybody?
James Brolin.
Yeah, James, is this a spoiler? I don't know. I don't remember how far it was revealed. Fuck it. James Brolin is Shirley MacLaine's estranged husband.
Nice.
That comes into the picture late in. They throw in a lot of weird things. This movie gets kind of dark in weird places at weird times, because she's got this unhealthy obsession with La Dolce Vita, and then she has this she's like a what's the word I'm looking for? A pathological liar.
Okay.
And they do, but while throwing in these weird things that make her seem untrustworthy, they still do the happy-go-lucky old people stuff. Like they skip out on a bill, but because they're old, it's so funny and adorable and all that shit. I don't know.
Chris Snow.
Yes, he is Marcia Gay Harden's husband. I think. Yes, he is.
I'm just here to set up your talk about the movie, so that's what I'm here for tonight.
Okay, is that everybody?
I'm seeing some names I'm familiar with, but not really. I can see Wendell Pierce in here.
Yes, Wendell. I'm not exactly sure how he related to the characters. He was help. I assumed he was part of a moving company, because that's what he does through most of the movie. Is he just helps them move in.
Okay.
But he just keeps reappearing. Even though they're moved in already, I don't.
Nice.
I don't know what his deal was.
That pretty much covers your cast list.
Okay. So I'm not a fan of this one either. It's that old people are funny because they're old bullshit. It's one of those movies, just from beginning to end. And that's it. I suppose they're appealing to an extent, but just with the movie they're trapped in, it's not working. So our next movie is a movie that I talked about doing so many times. Like, if you've watched these review videos, all of them, you've probably heard me say this movie's name 3 times, but you've never heard anything past that. Well, the time has come. This is I Am I. Let me say that slower. I Am I. The writer and director is the wife of Simon Helberg from The Big Bang Theory. And he's in the movie too. But despite that, it's like a really, really serious drama. It was giving me a lot of vibes of Away From Her, Sarah Polley's movie. With Julie Christie. But this only has a few people in it I recognize, but the main plot starts with the main actress, who is also the writer and director. Her mother dies, and at the funeral she meets her father for the first time in like years. Because the problem is that her dad is at this hospital because he basically, I don't know exactly, it's weird how they describe it, but he is extremely delusional. Like, he still thinks it's like the 70s and he's in his 30s. And it's to a point that it's so bad that, like, he doesn't even see himself old when he looks in a mirror because he's that delusional. So when he meets obviously he's not even under the impression that his wife is dead because of this. So when he meets his daughter for the first time in years, he's under the impression that it's his wife. But instead of just kind of dealing with this, the daughter says, well, I want to get to know him because I never really knew him. There's only one way I can do that. So she poses as her mother and hangs out with him. Like they're in the 70s. That's what happens. Some other recognizable faces we have. Simon Helberg, I think, is playing her stepbrother, is what I gathered, I think. And Jason Ritter is his caretaker, who she kind of has like this, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, love story with. Despite the fact that I think she's with somebody else in the movie, if I remember correctly. I watched a lot of movies this week. I can't remember for sure. But, no, this movie has its charm. And I can recommend it. It's not, like, completely. Still, once again, I can find myself always recommending an indie movie that has Jason Ritter in it. When he was doing an interview for About Alex, he made a funny joke about how he's pretty much in every indie movie that is made now. Like if there's a production of an indie movie going on, he will find himself to that setting of, hey, what's the budget on this movie? Oh, is there a part for me?
He's the Mark Duplass of 2014.
He's been doing this at least since 2012 with like a bag of hammers.
It's the first time I've been hearing about it though.
Oh yeah, Jason Ritter's everywhere. I feel like I've seen like 10 Jason Ritter movies in the past 2 years. That might not be an exaggeration.
It probably isn't.
I just watched Freddy vs. Jason again recently, so that might also be in my head.
Might have to take on that this year myself.
I just can't get enough of Jason Ritter, and that's perfectly okay with me. Because I think he's a super dude. He's a really good actor, too. Not near enough credit there. But yeah, it sounds like a creepy concept for sure. But it handles it in a really charming manner. Like I said, I was really getting away from her vibes from it. And the lead actor is really good. So I'm interested to see for her to continue to be a writer and director, to see what kind of other stuff she does.
I did not know this. No wonder Jason Ritter's name comes familiar to me, because it's something I see on the regular. He's the main voice in Gravity Falls.
I don't know what that is.
It's the Disney animated show that's basically like Twin Peaks for kids. That's the best way to describe it, really is, honestly. It's like David Lynch doing animation is basically what it is.
It's like that old video where they did David Lynch's A Goofy movie. Have you seen that video?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that went in a weird direction, but our next movie is...
Always does.
Our next movie is an indie movie called The Heart Machine, which just recently started getting talked about. There's no names in it. The girl in it was in You're Next. That's all I recognized. And the story of it is there's a guy and a girl that have an online relationship by way of Skype. And it kind of somewhat verges on thriller territory. I use thriller really, really loosely there. Because he basically starts noticing clues whenever he Skypes her.
Mm-hmm.
And he's under the impression that they've never met in real life. And he's where he is, and he's under the impression that she's in Berlin. But with the clues, there's a very good chance that she actually lives in the same city as him. And she's hiding it.
It's coming off very catfish-like.
Yeah, except they can see each other. There's this really, really awkward scene where they're cybering together. But anyway, and then he just basically does this creepy investigation to figure it out, and she's like, I don't know what's revealing too much and what isn't, but we get what keeps the story progressing is seeing just exactly who she is and what she does on a normal basis, and how exactly their relationship has come to be, and whether or not he's the only one. It's a little weird, and apparently it's getting like a positive reaction, but I thought it was a little, I mean, I can get into the concept. It's very interesting, but it's handled in such a dull fashion, and this lead character is, I mean, you want to be on his side, because it's really weird that she would say, you know, I'm from Berlin, but be in the same city as him. There's something creepy about that. But I don't know if it's just me or what's going on, but honestly, despite her alleged ruse, he came off creepier to me than she did. Even though you should side with him wanting to investigate if this is true and why she would do such a thing if it's true.
True.
But I found his character a little off-putting, more so than hers, which I don't think that's supposed to be the case.
Probably not.
Especially given the whole setup. But I had a lot of trouble getting into this, so despite the fact that I thought its concept was intriguing. So, but like I said, if you think that sounds intriguing, apparently it's been getting some positive feedback, so I guess it just depends on if it's your thing or not. Oh God. Speaking of potential that's gone, movies are getting worse. Our next movie is called War Story. Now, it's advertised as starring Catherine Keener and Ben Kingsley, but not exactly. We're a little loose on the Ben Kingsley there. It does star Catherine Keener. She's basically this war photographer where she, goes on the scene and takes, pictures of dead bodies and shit.
Okay.
She might as well have been doing an Oscar-nominated documentary like The Scoiger or something. Well, eventually it gets too traumatic for her, so she decides to go lock herself in a hotel somewhere far away and just get away.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what the movie is for a long time. And then eventually she has a run-in with somebody that was in one of the pictures that she took. And strikes up a friendship with her, or tries to strike up a friendship with her, while trying to get over the whole trauma of the whole situation. And every now and then Ben Kingsley pops up and they talk for a few minutes and then he disappears. I have no idea who he is in relation to her, or where he comes from, or what he does. He will just randomly pop up and have conversations with her and then be gone. I don't know. But this movie is Valium on celluloid, for sure. It's like, imagine Insomnia without a murder mystery in it. Imagine if Insomnia was just Pacino hanging out in the hotel in the dark. That's what you have. So, if that's your thing, if you're like a massive Keener fan, I'd see it on principle. But, I mean, you might be able to, dig something out of her performance, but apart from that, this has got nothing. It's short, though. It's only an hour and a half. But still, it's
an hour and a half. Could be doing something else.
That's a long hour and a half. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. Finally. For the love of God. It's called Small Time. It is a, you're gonna see a name in there that you love really quickly. It's kind of a comedy drama of sorts that stars Chris Maloney, who also has a lot of movies this year. And he and Dean Norris run a car lot, and they basically hustle people into buying their cars. And they do like they're a whole team basically. The banter and all that. Well, the plot kicks in when Chris Maloney's son is graduating, and his son is played by Devin Bostick, who you know as Roderick from the Don't I Ever Want to Be Kid movies. A brilliant performance, if I say so myself.
Oh yeah.
But he doesn't want to go to college. He wants to get a job on the car lot and just hang out with Chris Maloney all day and sell cars with him and Dean Norris with a sex trader. So, he feuds with his ex, who is Bridget Moynihan, I think, and his stepdad, who is Xander Berkeley. Now let me stop here real quick, which is really funny to me because Xander Berkeley is always playing this goddamn part. Xander Berkeley is the stepdad in Taken. He's Maggie Grace's stepdad in Taken.
Yeah.
He's John Connor's foster dad in Terminator 2. And he's the guy that Pacino's wife's cheating on him with in Heat. Xander Berkeley is always that guy. And this movie is no exception. But no, it's the performances are really good. And the banter between Maloney and Norris is really, really great. It's a movie that's really got its head on straight, too. It knows where it's coming from, and it's got, everything seems to fit right. It's a good family drama. While also having, the comedic elements in there. It goes into drama territory without being overkill or without being, schmaltzy or anything. Overall, it's just a nice movie that I do recommend. Much like its title says, it's very small, but it's also been out for a while, so you could probably find it on DVD by now if I had to guess. I'm not totally sure though. Okay. Our next movie is Frontera. I believe is how you say it. Another small movie with a recognizable cast. We have, for starters, we have two married couples who are on opposite ends here. We have Ed Harris and Amy Madigan, who, as we know, are married in real life. And we have Michael Pena and Eva Longoria. Now, of course, I approach with caution every time I see Eva Longoria in a movie, but she's alright here. The story of it is that Michael Pena is out and he's trying to get work. And people assume that he is crossing the border illegally. He's already got a rep and everything, so... Now the thing is one day when he's, out looking for work, he comes across Amy Madigan on her horse. And he's, saying, hey, we could work for you. I really could just use anything right now. Eva Longoria's about to have a baby, all that. Well, it just so happens right in the middle of this meeting that has happened, this chance meeting. There are a few toolbag teenagers who thinks it's fun to go out to the desert and shoot at people who are trying to cross the border.
Oh.
Just to scare them. They just keep saying, we're just going to scare them, and then they keep shooting and getting closer and closer. Well, eventually, they scare Amy Madigan's horse, and she falls on it and hits her head off a rock and dies. And Michael Pena's trying to help her. But Ed Harris shows up and sees Michael Pena with his dead, bloody wife and gets the wrong impression. as you can probably guess.
Yeah.
And that's where it goes from there. It's basically Ed Harris trying to find justice while there's a whole other subplot with Eva Longoria where she gets taken and held hostage, and there's a lot going on here, but overall it manages it pretty well. It makes a pretty engrossing story out of it. Ed Harris is the man, like he always is, in my opinion. So yeah, I was able to get into this, and it's fine. You know, like everything else here, it's not something that's like totally a masterpiece or anything. But it's definitely good enough to see at least once. So yeah, I'd check that out. 3 more to go. Yeah, my body is tired, so it looks like I am just going to get through this. Our next movie is called Days and Nights, which also has a gigantic cast list for an indie movie. I'm not quite sure to even say what this movie is about, because I'm not really sure, but to my understanding while watching it, basically a family comes together for like a get-together, and shit happens.
It's one of those movies.
Yeah.
We get those a lot lately.
We have our, I guess he's the patriarch. I don't know if they really specify that or not. That's William Hurt, who is, I don't know what his deal is, but he's really loopy. And then we have Ben Wishaw's in there, Allison Janney, Katie Holmes. You gotta help me out.
You're not gonna say his name. You never know if you're pronouncing it correct or not.
The guy from The Girl with Dragon Tattoo that was in John Wick.
And John Reno.
Yes, John Reno, of course. Is that everybody that you recognize?
Did I recognize Mark Rylance, maybe?
Oh, yes, he and his stepdaughter are both in it as well. And the guy that's the writer and director of the movie is also in it.
Yes.
Who's actually been in a few movies. He was in like The Hurt Locker and another Catherine Bigelow movie. I want to say K-19.
That's correct.
Huh, yeah.
Kristen Camargo.
Yes.
Camargo.
I don't really know how to take this movie. There's a lot going on. Here's the start. The first half hour was confusing to me because Ben Whishaw plays this character that's really, really overly artsy. Like, he's trying to make this movie with the girl, and I can't tell, because it's not just this scene either. There were scenes before too. For a while, I couldn't tell if this movie was trying to be artsy or if it was making fun of artsy things. I couldn't really distinguish. But then once we get past that, it's really just... It's kind of gets episodic from there. There's just one conflict after another. There's one involving the accidental death of a bird that they actually, like, have a little family trial. Like, literally. I don't know. And a lot of the time it's just characters being particular. I mean, I like Ben Whishaw, I really do, but this character is so goddamn whiny and emo. It's really, really hard to take.
Sounds like a Spirit Awards movie.
If it gets nominated for something, at least it means I watched it for a reason. So, let's hope.
Best way to look at it at this point.
Yeah. It's hard for William Hurt to be bad in a movie, and that's not the case here either. So I think he doesn't. I mean, there's nobody in this movie that stands out as doing anything good, but that's more so because of the material. I think Mark Rylance might come off the best, even though he's basically in so many movies too, not just this one. Every time I see him, I just imagine what Kevin Kline would have been like in the part.
Wow.
Because they just kind of... He just reminds me so much of him. But, yes, that's all this movie is it's quirky family doing quirky shit. And hardly any of it's interesting. Allison Janney's probably the best of the cast. She's the only one that really gets to do anything. And she basically just gets to be Allison Janney, the part that she was in like, the way, way back. That's all. There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing to see. Katie Holmes got a few lines that I kind of liked. I liked her deliveries and shit, but which isn't something Katie Holmes does very much. So, yeah.
It's come a long way since Joey Potter.
There's nothing to see here.
It's a shame. It seems like a good concept.
Well, don't worry, because Ben Whishaw is back to try to redeem himself.
That's good.
This is a movie called Lilting. It's nominated for a couple of British Independent Awards. The lead actress, and it's nominated for debut director. And we got another interesting premise here. I remember it being like surprising to people when it was revealed that Ben Whishaw is like gay in real life. But now he's gonna play a gay character, so it makes it more obvious. We meet our main character, who is this woman. It's a very interesting and heartbreaking reveal too, because she's an older woman, and we see her talking to her son, and they're having like a whole conversation in this room. And this is the whole opening. It lasts for like 5 or 10 minutes or so, this conversation. And then finally, I guess it's a neighbor comes in and says, "Hey, I just came here to change the light bulb." And we pan back over and we see that the woman's by herself, which is to symbolize that her son has been dead. And I guess that's her way of like comforting herself about it. Now the thing about it is that she doesn't speak English, but she really, really likes a dude that she's been hanging out with, an older dude that does speak English and nothing else. So as much as they like each other, there's a constant language barrier between them, and they've never been able to understand each other. So Ben Whishaw comes into the story, and he is her son's, was her son's secret lover. And he won't tell her that because he's afraid, that he was already keeping it a secret, and he's afraid that she'll have thought less of him, even after death. So he decides that he's going to help her cope to fulfill his dying wishes by getting her a translator so that her and that dude can communicate. And friendships and relationships abound. There's the relationship between him and the interpreter, and her and the dude, and her and Whishaw, and her and the interpreter, and it's a whole thing. But it's also, I think it's going to get a lot of acclaim. It's obviously it's an extremely emotional movie. And that emotion is really potent. It really hits when it needs to. And there are some really big moments that pay off. I was really grabbed in by that opening. It kind of reminded me of the Glenn Close Dakota Fanning segment in that movie 9 Lives. It's basically that, but to open a movie with that was a really interesting choice. And it kind of set up for that emotion that was going to be throughout the movie that it does really well. So yeah, if that's if emotion is your thing, then I could definitely recommend this. It might show up at the BAFTAs too at some point. Alright. Our last movie already. This is nice. Wow, only 39 minutes in too.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, this is a Western called The Salvation. Apparently it's screened at Cannes. Also an interesting cast list here. It's a revenge Western. Starring Mads Mikkelsen of all people. The D is silent. So, Mads Mikkelsen's out and he's got a wife and a son. And while they're out, he comes in contact with 2 criminals who are really vicious. Long story short, they're attacked. The kid is killed, the wife is raped and killed, and he's left for dead. So he seeks revenge immediately. He tracks the dudes down and he kills the holy fuck out of them. The trouble is that one of those guys was the brother of Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who is our villain. Our very ruthless, hardcore villain. This dude, I would love to see this dude and Charlie Prince in a gunfight.
Ooh.
Because they're about equally ruthless, and that's saying something. Jeffrey Dean Morgan's introductory scene. He gets in. There's like a town circle. Like all the people in the town are in this circle in the middle of the street, and he just starts shooting them in the head. Just a random dude, an old woman, a dude in front of his wife. He's just giving headshots left and right. Because he's pissed off that his brother's been murdered and he's going to track down whoever did it. And his lady companion is his brother's wife, who he is now banging and he's always wanted to. That is Eva Green, who is mute because her tongue has been cut out. Eva Green has no lines in this movie. She's just there to look like Eva Green. And, yeah, it goes from there. It's there. It's a really short movie. It's just very, very clean cut. It gets right to the point. And it's very entertaining. I was getting a lot of, like I just mentioned Charlie Prince. Not in story or anything, but just kind of, just the feel in general, or the fact that they're the same genre. Mangold's 310 to Yuma is, the feel is very similar. This one feels a little cheap at times, but I don't think it had, you know, the budget of something like 310 to Yuma, so that's forgivable. But yeah, if you're a Western fan, I think you'll really like this. I was talking to my dad recently about how there are, he was complaining that a lot of the times villains are too likable now. Mm-hmm. Like there's no villain, especially in Westerns, there's no villains that are just straight flat out villains that you just want to hate. Jeffrey Dean Morgan in this is one of those characters. He is just straight pure evil.
He's an old school heel.
Yeah. And you know, the acting is great for what's there. Obviously it's got an impressive cast list. Normally, Jeffrey Morgan doesn't get enough credit because he looks too much like Javier Bardem, and people just confuse him.
We already talked about earlier in this video.
Yes.
So it makes sense we're ending on this.
Everybody thought he was Downey when Watchmen came out for some reason.
That's interesting.
But yeah, this is definitely worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of Westerns. So it feels very classic in a sense, while also feeling more like the modern Westerns like we've been having, like 310 to Yuma and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really violent too. Like not like, probably more so than 310 to Yuma, but not quite Django territory or anything. So yes, that's very entertaining. It's always nice to see a nice revenge movie. Tarantino probably loved this. So that's what we have.
So, because now we have started making star mounts for everything,
oh god,
I get to read upside down now because your list is upside down from what I can see. Thank you.
It's these.
I was hoping so. Yeah, I noticed the 2 days, 1 night we went on the last video.
It totally doesn't matter for me to do this because it'll already be in the description when you click on this. But this is basically for you to know.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Honestly. So, Adult World?
1.5.
Automata?
2.5.
Elsa and Fred?
1.5.
IMI?
2.5. Do you see a trend?
The Heart Machine?
2.
War Story?
1.5.
Small Time?
I want to say 3, but it doesn't quite reach that, so I'll say 2.5.
Frontera?
2.5.
Days and Nights?
2. That's being generous, I guess.
Lilting?
3.
And Salvation?
It's somewhere between 2.5 and 3. I'll say 2.5.
Okay.
But yeah.
So this review will be out actually on this Friday, which is the 12th of December. Tomorrow we are actually going to be going to watch, I believe, Exodus and Top 5. I think that's right.
I have no idea.
And that'll be out on the weekend. Brand new Versus coming this Sunday. Gaming with Ash returns for Saturday as well, so that'll be tomorrow's video. Hopefully you enjoyed all the content from Florida. And AJ, any parting words?
No.